Okay, day drinking with David. We are back, back in the shop, back at it again. Went for it once, not sure what's going on. Hopefully we'll connect with Alan Laws out of Denver, Colorado. Some of the most interesting new craft whiskeys on the market. Hopefully that will come through without much issue here. Let's see if I can get them on board. We're getting ready to open the shop up. That's very exciting. We've had some interesting stuff happening all over. Let's see if this will work this time. And yeah, lots of stuff happened. Lots of new whiskeys hitting. The Calumet 15-year last week. We got, okay, let's try this again. Let's try this again. Oh, wow, we did it. Hey, guys. Oh, the whole gang's here.
Yeah.
Hey, there it is. That's amazing. Hi. Welcome.
Different technology platforms.
It's the new wave, How are you guys? Welcome.
We're well.
Doing well, yeah.
Thanks. Can you introduce yourselves?
I'm Al, and I have with me today our barrel manager, James Coons, as well.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the distillery. Tell us, actually, Al, tell us about you. Your name's on the whiskey. I want to know why and who you are and what you're doing here and why do you have a distillery? It's a really interesting story.
So it's I could tell you about the passion story and all the things but in my mind, it's, if you're not passionate about any of this, you shouldn't be doing it. I'm obsessed by it. So it's another level of this. I've been drinking whiskey since I was 16, and this is my favorite thing. Like there's no beer in my fridge to speak of. I don't drink wine. Whiskey's the most highest of all spirit there is, and it resonates. So when we wanted to start this, we wanted to build something the right way. We knew that it was going to take about 20 years to establish, and we're about halfway now. And going through the right processes to establish the brand is really tough, as you know.
Yeah.
And we didn't sell a drop of whiskey for the first 3.5 years. So
wow.
We've been on the market for about, I think, just over 6 now.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been growing every year. And today we're going to go through a bunch of the stuff that I think is really interesting with our distillery, and that we're extremely focused on grain flavor and where that stems from, which is from where the grains are grown, the varietal. And we're trying to bring that to everybody. And we started off with a 4 grain bourbon, which is different to start. Trying to bring all 4 of those American mother grains in every sip. Instead of being a wheater or high rye, we wanted to be able to deliver a one and done kind of thing. And then from there, we deconstructed the 4 grain recipe into single grain recipes so that, you can really tell the difference between the grain flavors that are present in the 4 grain. And just to highlight the flavors of these heirloom variety grains, which are very distinctive.
Right on. And so you were passionate about whiskey in general, or are you like a bourbon guy? Like where do you come from in the category?
I like all whiskey. So at one point I had as many as 600 different whiskeys in the house. And well, COVID has definitely taken that down quite a bit. We're down into below 400 now, and James can attest to that too. We've gone through quite a bit of stuff, but everything from Scotch to bourbon to rye. But bourbon is my favorite thing. So, trying to make 4 grain, we wanted it to be a whiskey that was kind of fell between Maker's Mark and in such easy, approachable, easy to drink, right, light bodied, and then 4 Roses, single barrel with the complexity and the layered flavor profiles that come from yeast and from I think from low corn to having more flavor grains in it.
Yeah.
So those goalposts to set up to start off on the 4 grain, and I think we're right in the middle of that somewhere.
And can you tell us a little bit about your process? I don't know if how, because I haven't been out there. Are we talking closed top, open top fermentation? What's the still look like? Any details in terms of the actual process itself? Are you,
Sure.
yeah, I'd love to hear about that. And
Yeah, we're not trying to remake American whiskey. We're trying to use traditional styles, and so everything we make is sour mash, whether it's malt whiskey or our bourbon. Everything's done sour mash. So we're all grains cooked together at different temperatures that maximize their flavor, the grain flavors. Open air, open top fermenters, about a 72 to 90 kind of hour ferment, between 3 and 4 days in the fermenter, and then a quick rip through the still in the first pass, and then the second pass. All these are going through right now a 550 gallon like pot column Vendome still.
mm-hmm.
It's got 4 plates, but we just run them open, so there's no reflux. I'm not trying to do anything other than to push the most flavor through. The pot column had more to do with the ceiling height than anything else, to be honest. We have a new still that will be installed this summer, which is a very large 2,000 gallon Vendome, same style, but it's just for stripping. So we'll strip and then we'll finish in the 550 now.
It's the same style in the sense that it's the pot to column rather than column to pot, which is typical in Kentucky. And anything tricky about being in Denver? I know you guys have a different climate than Kentucky for sure. Are you adapting to the dry?
Yeah, not just rain, environment. Yeah, like environment's part of the terroir of what we make, right? So we're going to cut it with Eldorado Springs water when it goes into the barrel, so we add some minerality and some mouthfeel. But here we're a mile high, and we're in a desert. It's a up mountain desert. It's dry. We're right against the front range of the mountains, so we get massive barometric pressure swings, like not just during the week. I mean, almost every day, which makes our barrels pump like a heart, right? Like it more than temperature, because people talk about temperature, and we get definitely hot summers, and it gets warm in here, and then it gets cooler, but we keep it above 65 or something, so the barrels are already because then if they go below 40, 50, there's nothing really going on. Like heat's part of the chemical reaction that's going on without heat. But the barometric pressure swings making, because the barrels don't breathe like you or I breathe, so it's restricted. So the pressure changes, pushes the liquid into the barrel and out of the barrel more rapidly. So we get a lot of color, and right out of the gate, we're getting a lot of the substances that we want from the wood in the whiskey. So that doesn't mean that it ages faster. Time still matters. But anything in a bottle that isn't at least 3 years old, and most of our stuff is really close to 4, and then our bonded things are 6+. So
and those are the products where you're I'm starting to really see you guys unravel what's going on there with putting together something that has the heart of of an American bourbon or rye, but in a very unique way. And that's that. Not to say that the 3 and 4 year old stuff isn't excellent, but at 6, you're starting to really, really feel that something special is going on there. And I think it's really interesting that you're also heating the warehouse, which is sort of like this secret about Kentucky. Craft distillers kind of ignore the fact that a lot of the big distillers in Kentucky are not just heating, but heat cycling. So bring the heat quite up and doing this whole up and down, not to mention adding humidity through steam heat, which is another huge factor. I think kind of goes to that pressure thing, or not really, but the humidity is another factor, which
we want to still drink. So we're not trying to reduce our loss right now. Someday we might. Want to keep the angels happy. It's tough to cycle heat because when you have, like, we're in our warehouse, we're back in the lab, James' lab here, right in the midst of all the barrels, and we have over 3,000 sitting here, and we only use large format barrels, so they're all 53s, and But to try to heat this like quickly and then cool it, there's too much of a heat sink in the
Yeah, you need those
barrel.
special warehouses.
Yeah, you would have to have something that could really, we clearly couldn't do that. Our barrel house leaks like.
But you saying keeping it above 65, which is
Yeah.
still keeping them active. So that's energy intensive, I assume, in the winter there. It's not like it's cold.
It's here. Denver's a great place for that because we don't really, you see all the mountain snow and these huge storms, we don't really get that. So we had like about a week of something in the 20s and we ended up popping some sprinkler heads. So it really typically doesn't get that cold in Denver.
Right.
So it gets cool, but we want to keep them active. All the barrels, as long as they stay active, then I think in Kentucky, they used to talk about age not in years, but in how many summers they used to see, right?
Right.
And I think that's how we look at it too. Where, age still matters, right?
Yeah.
And what you're looking for out of the whiskeys. The ones we're going to try today, the bottles say aged over 2 years on them, but everything in it's over 4. So it just
This isn't the only industry where people are trying to trick time, but it's not an easy proposition. Well, I'm hoping we can have a little taste. I think I can't wait too much longer here, and maybe you can walk me through what you've got, and then I don't know if it's possible. Maybe we can have a look at the warehouse quickly if there's bandwidth enough for it, if you're up to it.
It'll be a bit noisy. We have a large bottling crew going back
fine
there.
With that. That's part of the fun.
All right, we like that.
Yeah. Where should we start here?
Let's start with the 4 grain.
Great. I love these little. Do you guys sell these? The 4-packs?
Yes, we do. So it comes out this time of year, Father's Day, dads and grads kind of thing, and then in the holidays. That's
your new rep in Southern California is one of the finest salespeople in the industry. So I'm really
wonderful.
Yes, we are very happy to have him. So we'll be selling all that much more laws. It's important to have good representation here. So there's the 4 grain. Tell us about this, the mash bill and the whole skinny here.
Sure. I'm going to do this one, and then the rye I'm going to have James do, and then we'll swap off between the two. But this is our flagship. So this is a 4 grain recipe, 60% corn, 20% wheat, 10% rye, and 10% barley. And all those small grains are all, again, heirloom variety. They're not grown for yield, they're grown for flavor. So they have big flavors in them. This is aged almost 4 years, 3.5 years, 4 years. It's at 95 proof, so it's got, you won't know that actually. It's actually fairly light for that.
What is that process like locating heirloom varieties? I feel like there aren't many people growing that stuff. Do you have to get a farmer to do it for you, or you just, start Googling heirloom farms, or like, how does that work?
I think that's one way you can do it. We happen to have a relationship with the Cody family farm and then Whiskey Sister Supply out in Whiskey Sister Supplies in Burlington. They supply our corn, and the small grains all come from Alamosa, which is down south in a valley that, it's an ancient valley. It's where a lot of the barley's grown in the state. But these are varietals that, this farm doesn't just grow the grains, they actually malt them. They're the first craft malting company in the country. There's more of them now, but they were the first one. And so the malts that we use, and there's not a lot of malt in the bourbon, sure. It's just a little bit of wheat malt, and then the barley malt obviously is the capacity. So
a portion of the wheat is malted.
It is. So of that 60%, or sorry, of the 20%, some is raw, and there's like 20% of that is malted wheat.
Is that for enzymatic purposes or more for flavor, or what, or both?
It's for flavor actually. So it's super, super sweet. It's really plum grain. It's Centennial white wheat. It's not like red Barbarian, like hard wheat. It's a specific wheat. So it acts like rye in the ferment. So
weird.
It's a little more gooey, has more protein, and those proteins come through to some degree in the distillation, which gives you mouthfeel in that. So the malted stuff We like it because it adds to the sweetness. And we have a low corn recipe at 60%. So to add a little bit more sweetness to it is important for bourbon.
Well, it's interesting because it definitely leans toward a wheated nose. You know, it has that sweet, round stuff going on. There's a little bit of that twinge of tropical, you know, not banana quite, but this really pretty note. It loves air, man.
It does love air. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's opening up here with a little bit of
It
swirling
loves
in a really, really nice way.
a little touch of water.
Yeah.
Blow it up after your first sip.
And so you've taken this wonderful heirloom grain. It's fermented relatively slowly. What sort of yeast are you using on these?
We use American ale yeast. So again, we're trying for a traditional process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying for traditional American whiskey process, and so we're using ale yeast. We do make it with other things that we try out from time to time. We've made it with champagne yeast, like EC 1118. We've made it with like
T58 Belgian yeast. We
Yeah.
tried M1 Scotch yeast. Just playing around with a few different things, but yeah,
How ultimately important, if you were to take the 4-grain mash bill and use different yeast strains, are we talking totally different whiskey or subtle differences?
subtle differences. That what you picked up at the beginning, it really messes around on the front end with the fruitiness. That's about where it has its biggest impact. But in every sip here, you should get the first part should be the sweetness, right? In all bourbon, that's the corn. And then immediately you should get a little bit of a bite. And that's the rye. We call it like a penny metallic bite. Mm-hmm. That's what rye brings to things. It's like the mint and the things, but in this, it comes across that way. And then the baking spice is the big thing, the wheated part that you picked up on, that's the part that's like the doughy bread, the orange, the like the like cinnamon and cardamom, those kind of things all come from wheat. The wheat whiskey itself, try here in the third iteration, is just like an orange bomb with all those baking spices.
Oh.
And then followed that is the nutty finish, which it takes a couple sips to get to the nutty finish, but that's coming from the scarlet barley that we're using. And that's more like a hazelnut or walnut.
Cool. Well, it's delish. We love this. Tell me though, you're distilling two runs. Where is it coming off the still? What sort of proof you guys pull it?
Comes off the still. The start of the run's around 158, and then the average in the run is about 126 to 130. It's in that range. Cut, we typically barrel. We actually kind of oscillate them now, like 110 and 105.
Great.
I don't think anything that's gone in batch yet has been 105, but it's coming up in about a year. Oscillating them allows to put less water in is what we're a bit of purists in that way too. So
hell yeah.
But the lower amount of water, we've done stuff in the full 125 range, but in our warehouse and our dry, that'll finish out after 4 years in the mid 130s. So unless that's coming as a cast strength barrel, I don't really want to add that much water to it to get down to 95. So I think it's better to have it integrate in the barrel rather than in the stainless steel tank in a month where you're trying to get it down to proof.
Yeah, you get a different, different solubles, different things coming off the wood at different proofs. It's interesting. I'm surprised you're saying that your barrels go up quite a bit there, or not quite a bit. I guess in 4 years you're gaining what, 5 proof? You said.
Yeah,
is
it
that
goes.
Typical at all?
What would you say?
Proof ranges?
James can tell you exactly what happens from the 110 where it finishes after 4 years.
Yeah, so for an example, like if our bourbon barrel entry proof is 110, or between 105 and 110, if we start at 110, After 4 years, it'll be around 115 to 116. So we pick up,
Okay.
well, really between 4 and 6 proof points over those 3-4 years. And that's just
Not insignificant.
really not. That's due to the high altitude and dry climate here, and the just everything that sort of builds our climate here with the barometric pressure swings and everything like that. So very different from aging at sea level in a humid climate. In
What sort of
the coast of Scotland or something.
Yeah. What sort of volume losses do you get in terms, not just alcohol, but you're obviously gaining alcohol, but
After about 3-4 years, we see probably just under 20% loss. I mean, if you start at 53 gallon, end up around 41 gallons or something like that. So roughly 20% loss. So I don't actually tax up to someone in a more humid climate or a different elevation, but that's just pretty average for us.
And we're only stacked 5 high, so the variant between the bottom ones and the top barrels are not as great as, say, in a rickhouse in Kentucky where that's stories. And there's definitely differences there. But yeah, and then the barrel sucks up 2 or 3 gallons of that immediately. So give you the head for the
Love it.
oxidation.
All right, on to the wheater then, or the wheated, I should say.
Let's go on to let's do you want to do the malt next?
Malt?
Let's do the malt next.
Yeah.
This is James' favorite, so let's do we're gonna do that next.
Yeah, so this is the mash bill we play with quite a bit and probably the most out of our recipes, but it's 100% malted barley. As Al mentioned, the variety of barley is called Scarlet. It's a 2-row barley that's grown again in Alamosa, Colorado, and was a European malt that they brought over. I don't know if they're still the only growers of this variety in the United States, but they were at the time when they started growing it. Great yield on the grain, just a really great all-around brewing grain, which is why they grow it in the first place. And we benefit from that because it gives really great yield for us. And so something different that we would do as compared to a Scotch or Irish distillery making malt, we ferment on grain and we distill on grain as well, which is just a built process. We don't lauter the wort off the mash and ferment that separately. So it's just kind of built into how we do things, and that's, we run it just like we would a bourbon. We ferment and distill just like we would a bourbon, rye, or wheat. So, it's, like I said, we played around with the recipe several different times, different variations on it, different specialty malts. We've tried a little bit of raw barley here and there. Every time we get something a little bit different, but we're able to bring it back to sort of the main line and kind of our signature flavor. So we get a lot of
it definitely ain't Scotch, that's for sure. This is and it's tough to, it's interesting that like you're doing this I think this is the most unique in a lot of ways of your products, in that sense that you're really, a lot of the other craft whiskey distillers are doing a lot of the same stuff as Scotland, or doing something totally different. You're kind of in between in some ways here, and I will say that it's working for you. It's okay. Like something I always say about craft in general. It's like different is great, different is awesome, but you can't just be different. It also has to be good. So that's one thing here that is really working for us. You can't just make it different because it's different. I mean, Scotland will always beat everybody at the single malt Scotch game. So like, you're not going to beat them at that, but this does a lot here. And the grain still comes through. The wood is really well integrated, even at this age. It doesn't feel young. You said this is about 4 years here now.
Yeah, this would be the same stuff that went into, it's the same distillate and same barrels that went into our 4-year bonded. It's just cut to 85. It's not at 100.
Right on.
But it's very nutty.
Nutty,
It's like peanut brittle, right?
Totally get that.
All going into the holidays it's kind of a cool holiday thing. And these are all in new barrels, right? This one's. We have used barrel stuff too. We have an amazing portfolio of barrels on the malt side. So in the future, you'll see different things from us. This is probably why James likes it so much, not from the flavor and the grain. He likes it because it's the wide open experimentation of putting barrels together and marrying them to create something different, which is what you'll probably see from us in the future.
Cool. That's very exciting. And certainly, we love experimentation and different barrels. And that's definitely an exciting part of the whole game.
So now let's move to.
Go ahead.
Let's move to the wheat.
Okay.
So this stuff's pretty special in the sense that our 4 grain is still technically, it's 4 grains, but it's got a high content. So this one is the most unique, cool whiskey, in my opinion, that we put out. The rye is going to punch. The rye whiskey is just on its own, but the wheat is something that's newer. This is also over 4 years old. And in about 2 or 3 weeks, we release this year's version of wheat, which is a bonded 5-year-old. Actually, it's almost 6, but it's 5 because that's how the TDB sees it. So,
I don't know if it's
stuff,
psychosomatic, but this has that orange thing you were talking about. That's just a...
Oh, man. It smells like it's got curacao in it.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Yeah, it's got that orange peel and then the orange blossom and the orange on orange.
Yeah.
100% Centennial white wheat. Half of it's malted, half of it's raw. So right away, the orange peel. Our tasting manager has this great tasting note on it. The tasting room manager, and it's like there's a strawberry milkshake kind of thing to it. The florals on it are amazing. Like they're like field flowers, but the orange is there. This is the one, that's what we put out this time of year. You put an ice cube in this, it's going to taste like a creamsicle, orange creamsicle. The cold ice will definitely cream it a little bit. So when you take a sip, it's got some fire. But orange, doughy. I can get cinnamon buns. I don't think that's what I had today for breakfast. I'm getting some cinnamon bun here. And there's definitely strawberry and some other fruit notes in it. But so when we first put out our wheat whiskey, it was really just in our tasting room and a little bit in Colorado. And it was like gold. And what we were going for was just the grain flavor. Like, hey, this is the second deconstruction after the rye. And man, like this is so cool. Look at the grain flavors. Well, at 4 years, it wasn't just that. It was that, and it became a really full whiskey. And now at 5 to 6, wow, it's even kicking up further. But that orange doesn't go away, and that's its signature note.
Yeah. I do find that a lot of other wheat whiskeys I've tried are almost too neutral to sort of stand up for longer. Like when you start to, and I'm sure this has to do with adding that malted component in there. You start to just get barrel and this is not that. I mean, the barrel's good. It's a part of the whiskey, but there's more there, and the texture, the great depth on the palate, which is, I think, unique among craft wheat whiskeys, because there's a lot of people out there who are, maybe trying to do something a little bit less flavorful and to appeal to people who want something smoother, quote unquote, but aren't considering that that's got to stay in barrel for 3, 4, 5 years, and then there's nothing left. It's just barrel. So barrel and ethanol.
I think it follows the path of like a wheated bourbon, though. Wheated bourbon takes longer in the barrel than a rye bourbon, because the wheat needs to kind of take a different path in its development, and also it takes longer periods of time to take the sharpness out of it. And this still has some sharpness in it, which I like, and ice definitely takes that away.
Mm-hmm.
But the sharpness is like tannins, and we've had that comment, oh, it's very tannic. But it's orange peel tannic more than it is barrel tannic. But it's amazing, and it works well in lots of cocktails. It's the summer favorite around here. And it only comes out, like we only put out, I don't know, 500, 600 cases of this a year. And then in the 4-packs, it's available. And it's really the same stuff that's in the 750s. We just, again, we're not getting too clever with this.
Well, we appreciate that. Sometimes it's best to keep it simple on these sorts of things. I like that a lot. I think, it's great to have a diverse portfolio, but you guys have really dialed these in really nicely. And I think that's what's, I'd rather a craft distiller do one thing really well than like 10, sort of okay things. And like here you've got a nice range of things, but you're not spread yourselves too thin. I really appreciate that. And I'd say the next one, the rye, is always my favorite from you guys. I don't know what it is. But I know the Four Grain's the flagship, but you're right. There's something going on here, and I'd love to hear about it.
James, this is all you.
Yeah. So for the first couple of years that I worked here, I think I drank more bourbon than I drank water. And I got to say, maybe in my old age now, my palate has evolved, and I'm really digging on rye in the last year or so because this product has evolved so much for us. But at the heart of it, I think we've really nailed the grain flavor, really preserving the flavor of the malt house. And really, when Al mentioned the Cody family, the guys who farm this grain, the first time they tried this whiskey, they said that it tasted like you were eating a handful of grain straight out of the field. And I think, we aim to do that with all of our whiskeys, but it's especially true with the rye. It's so spicy, so earthy. This really comes through with a little hint of floral note on the nose. It's just, the more I drank it, the more I'm just excited about how it's a balanced whiskey. It's really fun to drink. It's so unique. Of all of our, I think, probably the most closely tied to the region where it comes from. We use the word terroir quite a bit, from wine country or. And we don't use that word lightly. We don't throw it around. This particular variety of rye that they grow is indigenous to the San Luis Valley. So that's why this product is called San Luis Valley Rye. It's really an homage to the region.
Indigenous, like that's where it comes from.
It's an heirloom grain.
Only place in the world it's grown.
It's the only place that it's grown. It's crossbred from numerous different strains of European rye that came over in the 1800s. So it's been around for a long time, and possibly even Spanish before that. The Spanish that area in southern Colorado in the 1600s. So It's been around for a while. Nobody knows truly where it came from, but it's the only variety of grain that is native to that area. So rye is traditionally a covered crop or fed as, or it's sold as commodity grain for feed, and we are taking advantage of the flavor and the aroma of the earth. So for us,
planted in the fall, it's already up here in Colorado. So in a few weeks, it's not the goats, it's sheep. They're gonna put the sheep on the field, and they're gonna eat all the sprouts to slow it down, and then it'll come back. It gets harvested in August, and we start using it a few months later after it's dried and normalized after it's been harvested. But we use up all the grain until it's gone, and then we wait till next year. So and that's exactly.
This is the only rye are you using that rye just for this product, and then the other ryes are the other rye grain
bourbon as well, but when it's gone for us. So, and we don't cross marry grain year in the rye, so it has to come from the same grain year.
What are sort of like the physiological or maybe that's not the word, but like what makes this rye different from any other rye you might find in Germany or Canada or wherever else they grow rye?
Well, environment matters. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the varietal, as we've already said, and then the environment which it's grown into, the sandy soil and the level of calcium and salt in the soil.
Mm-hmm.
Rye as a plant pulls the most out of the ground than any of these grains. And so the conditions there, which is an ancient seabed, is what it is. If you dug down 3 or 4 feet, you hit water in the San Luis Valley, even though it's a desert. So it's being irrigated with the river water and then groundwater when the river gets too low. But it really tastes like where it comes from. So when you rye, you typically look for this peppery note, right? Pepperiness in rye is really valued. Well, our peppery note isn't like cracked pepper or black pepper. It's actually more vegetative. It's like serrano pepper, which is consistent with the grown, right? Like it tastes like serrano. You get the heat and then it radiates and keeps, on your cheeks even, not just on your tongue. And then your ears get hot pretty quick after a few. But it's really well balanced. And at 4 years, it almost tastes like a Manhattan cocktail, and with nothing else in it. A bunch of herbaceous notes in it.
Yeah, a lot of
and then as
green.
Older, yeah, definitely. And then at the 6, where we're at now in the bonded stuff, the 6-year-old, it starts to move towards more like traditional flavors, has more barrel influence. We like the grain flavor. That's kind of the crazy part of us. We're after that. But it's strong enough where even after the oldest stuff we have is almost 8, and it stands up to the barrel. It doesn't go away where it just starts to taste like, well, is it bourbon or is it rye? This is 100% rye recipe. So early on,
How much is malted?
Half and half.
Half and half. Same.
Yeah, rye is tough because it doesn't have enough diacetic power for conversion. Wheat has lots. Barley clearly is the best for it, but wheat has tons. The rye is tough. So at the beginning, when we were first using this, and they were early on, this is 7, 8 years ago now, when they were making the malted rye, it took a while to get it right. So we used a little bit of barley malt in it. So our early stuff and actually our old stuff, so our bonded stuff that's out there now still has 5% rye in it, but the 95% is still half raw, half malted rye.
Wow. Well, it's fab. I totally into it. And I think, I'm excited to try it at 8 years. I know we want to keep that grain flavor, but I think this is so, there's just so much there. And, you still get that pure rye, like almost that, like opening a fresh, pumpernickel loaf or something like that. It just got so much going on, the anise and caraway and all this stuff. So super into it.
Caramel.
Yeah, there's that side too. That salty, earthy thing. It's sweet as well. Great stuff.
It's the whole package, if you will, really ties together from again where it comes from more so than, and then our technique in making it. It's made sour mash style, and it's rich. The mouthfeel, there's nothing else even in our grouping of whiskeys that has this mouthfeel, and that's from the proteins. And if you don't filter it at all, if you don't run it through something to take fines out, it'll fluctuate on you. Like the fatty acids that are in it will bind with the minerals in the water, and you'll get those ghosts. We try a lot of effort to make sure there's no ghosts in our bottles. But if you open one, it's sitting there for couple months and half empty, you might get some things. You shake it up, all those flavors go back in.
Oh, our customers are like going through and like looking for the ones with, this one's got the oils in it. I'll take that one. That's our guys.
That's wonderful. I like.
Yeah, of course. Most producers are horrified to hear that. But so we've got a single barrel rye here as well. I'm excited. This is the first time tasting that. I'm very, very happy to taste the cask strength. Tell us about this barrel.
Yeah,
508.
So this is barrel 508. It's from a tight grouping of five-year barrels that we sent out to K&L. Both Southern California and Northern California got separate samples, and you guys actually picked 2 barrels that were very closely close in production. So you guys got barrel 508, and up in K&L, up in Northern California,
NorCal.
Is that right? But this particular range of rye barrels is my fact. I'm absolutely in love with this, like, right around 5 years, and this particular production season 5 years ago. We just made some killer stuff, and it's turning out to be really excellent. We changed a few things in our process at that time. We ran into some roadblocks. That particular harvest of rye was really high in oil. It was very high. It was very difficult to work with. A lot of protein and protein.
I don't know if you can see it on the way it coats the glass is. I mean, of course, it's cask strength, but when you said oily, I was just looking at that.
Yes.
It is viscous. Wow. What's the proof on this sample? I don't have this in.
The sample is at 116.6.
So this would have gone in at 110.
Yep. Correct. Yeah. So, and we played around with a few different things, changing the process a little bit, really just to clean it up. And like I said, it was a very oily, very high protein year for they got a bumper crop that year, a lot of rainfall down in the San Luis Valley. So they got really plump rain, which was excellent. Definitely hard to work with because that extra protein and oil kind of gums up the works, both in the fermenters and the still. And so as a result, we actually had to change some of our processes in how we clean the still and how we process things and that change it for the better. I mean, we learned a lot just about how to run rye. And I think as a result, it cleaned up our product, but it's still grain forward. It's still got a ton of flavor, mouthfeel, body, all that. So I'm really excited that you guys picked this one.
Yeah, this is a fab barrel.
James is here because he picked these knowing that you guys were big into this stuff. So he took it up he's like, oh, really? We'll just say, I want something that everyone's going to like, but others will say, I want a first round where you think that something is spectacular. And so that's what you got in your sample set.
And not everybody gets
it's a special barrel.
Range. I mean, a lot of accounts are getting stuff around 4 years, but I was told that you guys are special. So,
well, we'll keep telling everybody that. I mean, we feel special, but it's mostly because of you people. So you keep putting out good whiskey like this, and we'll keep pretending to be special. And this is really, really tasty. Peppermint patty, big sort of chocolate mint thing. It's a very different character already just in a couple years than the first one. I think, obviously, blending has a huge part to do with that, but there's still a link to that backbone of rye, that green herbal thing. Of course, the barrel's more influential here, but wow, this is a fun sample. I'm really glad Andrew picked this, and super tasty. And you do have, even though there's so much spice and bold flavor, you do not feel heat. I mean, it's not hot at all. I don't feel the 116 at all. This is
the wheat whiskey's hotter than this.
Yeah. Oh,
at 95.
Even at 95. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is 20 points higher or more.
This is a bit dangerous, guys. This is like a stay-at-home whiskey. We're not going out tonight.
Oh yeah.
Not that we go out anyway, although that's starting again, which is so weird. Are you guys opened up back in Denver yet? Are you fully open?
Yeah, to some degree. We're 50%. Yeah.
Cool.
There's a lot less people here, so
yeah. I mean,
a good place to work pandemic.
It's weird that 4 weeks it'll be fully open here, and 4 months ago we were, on basic lockdown again. So good for us, I guess. Good for everybody. It's good news.
Science works.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. This is fabulous. I'd
Cheers.
love if you can pick us up and take us through the barrel house. We're fine with the noise. If there's a little bit of light, we'd love to have a look around. And
We'll walk you through and show you some of the special finish area and bourbon in the wheat area. And I think, what else should we show? We can show you the bottling line, the activity going on right now, which I think they're packaging the 4-packs that go in these.
I got to get on that.
And then there's a really cool part of the 4-pack this year in that there'll be a QR code on it that'll take you through a tasting in 5 minutes with a bunch of people from the Laws Village, and it's pretty fun. So
awesome.
Hopefully people will use that. And even my parents know how to use a QR code now with their phone, so that's pretty good.
It's really come together now. The pandemic's made everybody a QR fan with all those menus, but that's very hip of you guys. I'm super into it.
How do you flip the thing?
There we go.
There we go.
All right.
Hey, here's some whiskey.
All right, so right now we're looking at what we call the special finish barrels. It's part of what the experiential series, I guess, is kind of the. Here you go. Here's experiential series. That's sort of that's the label, but internally we just refer to this as special finish. So we've got Madeira barrels. We got bourbon in Madeira. Those just started finishing December. We've got malt whiskey in Calvados. We've got port Curacao. Cognac is going to be a big product for us as far as kind of a mainline seasonal release. Look for that in the fall. We've made a little bit of brandy in the past. Hush hush on that.
Okay.
Whatever's malt. Here are the wooden ricks, kind of a little more traditional style, but it's fun. This is where any privately held barrels are stored and aged. So we've got approximately, 28, probably about 90, 95 or so just in these ricks. So if you own your own barrel, we throw it in here and you can come sample it whenever you want.
That's cool.
We're in the middle of packaging up those 4-packs, so we've got boxes and boxes as far as you can see, but that's just kind of part of the program. So this is a section of wheat whiskey, older stuff on the left here. It used to be labeled as Triticum. Now we've changed it to Centennial wheat. Just a little bit of rebranding a couple of years ago. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool.
I don't blame you. Nobody knows how to say Triticum.
Yeah. Moving on to malt. We internally label it as barley whiskey, but it's bottled as malt whiskey. And barley just refers to obviously the variety, the type of grain. Henry Road was the rebrand on that. It used to be called Hortium, which is the Latin word for barley. And then it was rebranded as Henry Road. As you can see, this section right here is all used barrels. So really first fill, I guess, is a Scotch distiller would call it. Anything with the U on it is a used barrel. And so we've got malt that went into a corn barrel, so that's a second fill. We've got stuff that went into rye barrels.
Cool.
Various things like that. Up there, that's Sam's barrel. As you can see, he claimed that. He's our senior distiller.
How did he
malt.
paint that or print that? That's pretty serious.
Yeah, he printed this picture.
That's great.
So after 5 years of employment here, you get your own barrel of whiskey, which is pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
So that's his barrel. Some of the older malt there. Then moving on to this is where we keep our vintage and bonded, so really anything that's going to be past 6 years. We've got Farmers Select. This is a product that we release locally here. The farmers down at Colorado Malting Company will come select a few of their favorite barrels we'll keep aging those for a while and then release them when they're ready.
Very cool.
Moving on to older stuff. This is barrel 666 rye. So that's kind of fun. We like to take some of the fun numbers. There's 1776. There's some stars and stripes on it. We like to get creative, just for fun. Older stuff.
Oh yeah.
Lower numbers, getting older and older. So, that's the vintage sections,
Very
things
cool.
that we're going to take pretty.
What's the oldest barrel in the warehouse right now?
It is right there, kind of in the back there. It's barrel 1. That was produced July of 2011. So if you're lucky enough to be here on July 4th, on the weekend of July 4th, if you're here for a tour, you can get a sample of that. And then barrel 1000 right next to that, that's real gold leaf that we put on there.
Wow.
To kind of commemorate our 1000th barrel of bourbon. So
very cool. What's the production like there? How many barrels you guys filling a year?
We've got right around 3,000 barrels in the barrel house, and then coming from the distillery, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Coming from the distillery, we get about 100 barrels a month?
Last month we hit 120.
Yeah, 120 barrels last month, which is an all-time high for us.
Yeah.
It still takes us to 150. And then our new still will take us to 150 this summer with capacity to go to 300 barrels a month. But, this still is a business too, and we don't have that kind of working capital. But we have the capacity to do it, and the idea is to stay 3 or 4 years ahead of what our sales profile is, and we're not in a hurry. That's one of the things that is different for us too, is that we started out and waited for 3.5 years, and we're okay waiting. We've only been in business for less than 10 years, and we're on our 4th round of bonded bourbon at 6 years, and that's a 6-year-old bonded, and that's pretty tough to do if you didn't start out.
No, you have to be. You're obviously good at planning. So that's pretty impressive. Are you seeing any? Yeah. Are you seeing any problems with the fluctuation in grain prices right now, or is it not really a big deal for you?
No, it's not too bad for us because, like corn, the corn varietals that you're using are typically our feed, right? And from those farms, they're not like what they're saying to us is a small percentage, and we paid 2, 3, 4. I don't know what it is. We paid way above commodity price for it already. We always did.
Right.
So they're getting their lift from the commodity side of it. But rye is particularly really tight.
Yeah.
The price of rye is very, very high. But the grain's grown for us, and again, if our farms aren't financially sound and solid, then we are not. So we definitely address those things all the time.
That's cool.
And again, we're making a premium price product, premium quality. We're going to make sure that we're not going through spreadsheets with a pencil and trying to carve off pennies all the time. We're not. We're really about any way that you can make it richer and more full is more important to us than cutting costs on it.
We have a customer asking, what's the story behind the logo?
Oh, that's a cool question. So let's take a look at, let's go zoom in on a logo. So the logo is 2 things. That's infinity. That's time. We make whiskey. Time freaking matters. It really, really does. And then this is like mini time. This is essentially continuous improvement, art, technique. Do it 1,000 times, get better every time. One of the questions we get asked a lot is, well, what's the best whiskey that was ever made here? And we're like, well, today, 5/6/21, we made the best whiskey we ever have. You don't get to try it for 4 or 5 years, but we believe that, and that's how we run things. No shortcuts is one of our trademarked slogans, and every day is a tryout in terms of we always try to raise the bar, not on just ourselves, but on our competitors and everything else. We want to make sure that we don't have to take a knee really to Kentucky that started 100 and some years ago. We're young, but that doesn't mean we're not the same. We don't have the same focus and care about what goes into our barrels. And 100 years from now, maybe we're one of those companies too. They make incredible product. We don't even think we compete with them because they're in a whole different plane. We're here to provide something different to the market and try to honor the tradition that came out of Kentucky for American whiskey, which is always high quality.
Yeah. It's tough because, you know, it's not like craft beer, you know, going up against big beer, which was, I mean, no offense, you know, junk. American whiskey, big whiskey is good whiskey. You know, it's like, it's not, you know, it's hard to.
It's fantastic, but you can make it different. And just like in Scotland, you have regions. I think in the next 10 years, America will have those kind of regions. We're kind of Rocky Mountain region. We have a lot of really cool peers in state and in other states close to us. And California will have their thing too. And New York and kind of Northeast has a version of whiskey that is awesome too. And then in the South, you'll get other things. So I think you'll get the Speyside, the Highlands, the Lowlands, the Highlands that you have in Scotland, which is a much smaller country. You can have that happen here. And I think it's real because it's all terroir driven. And it's going to happen.
Matters where you are, how it tastes, and that's really cool stuff, man. I really appreciate the sort of holistic viewpoint you guys are bringing to it. I usually can tell a craft whiskey is going to be good when the owner tells me that that they're trying to make the best goddamn thing they can, and it sounds like that's what you're doing. Not everybody talks like that, so you know, we really appreciate you bringing the heat, as they say, bringing the good shit, and I can't wait to get out there and taste some of those barrels with you and hang out and have a drink together. I really appreciate you guys being here today.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thanks for your time. We appreciate your time and appreciate the interest too. And we love telling the story.
Yeah, we love you telling it, and we're gonna crush this barrel, this 508. It's gonna disappear. So get ready send us another. All right.
I got lots more, David.
Cheers, brother. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Be well. Ciao.